tried so hard to make a top 10. It wasn't enough. It didn't tell enough of the story. So I tried to pare it down to 20. It wasn't enough. So I capped it at 25, and as you're gonna see, I cheated the hell out of it. To make it clear, these are not what I think are the best games of all time, but just the ones that left the biggest impact, the ones that made me the happiest to play, the ones that give me the best memories. Oh, and don't be surprised that there isn't a single game on this list made after 2006, as I'm all about the old school. Enjoy! That's what games are all about. Number 25. The Last Blade series. It has to be a hell of a list if this beautiful masterpiece of a 2D weapons-based fighter just barely squeezes onto it. The Last Blade, known in Japan as Bakumatsu Roman, Gekka no Kenshi, or Bakumatsu Romance, Swordsman in the Moonlight, something of a successor to SNK's Samurai Shodown series, but a bit more serious and polished. The two games in the series are as beautiful as they are deep. I always loved the deflection system, and used that as my signature finishing move. Just like Samurai Shodown, the Last Blade games taught me so much about Japanese culture and history, like the Bakumatsu period, when Japan finally opened itself up to foreigners, Bakumatsu meaning the end of the shogunate, or especially the four mythological creatures of Chinese and Japanese mythology, the Black Turtle of the North, the White Tiger of the West, the Red Phoenix of the South, and the Blue Dragon of the East. Though the story is generally serious, it isn't afraid to let its hair down sometimes and charm you. What else can I say? The game has every element of a great fighting game, and a great game overall. Number 24. Puzzle Bobble. This game, known in the US as Bust a Move, helped me get through junior college. Whenever I got too burned out or bored studying, I just go to the commissary and pop a few quarters in and relax and take my mind off of books. A cute and addictively simple puzzle game made by Taito, this is one of my guilty pleasures. I didn't notice what many may have right away. I knew of course that it featured Bub and Bob from Bubble, but it was only after a while that I noticed that inside the bubbles are the enemy sprites from those games too. You could see them clearer when they pop. Wow, nostalgic memories hidden inside nostalgic memories. Whenever you're feeling buried under something stressful, just remember that it probably will go to the Pow Pow Island. Number 23. Megaman X. I could easily call the whole series into this. I mean, I did like many of the later X series games that let you play as Zero, but this is the one with the best soundtrack, the best simple storyline, and there's no getting around that this was my favorite. I've beaten it countless times. Of course, when I was a kid, I had a lot of fun playing through the main series on the NES, and they all featured great music and gameplay, but this one just stepped it up for me. I got pleasure out of the boss explosions, the simple environmental reactions, and the Capcom-y touches like the Hadouken. Nobody can really replace Dr. Wily, but Sigma stepped up to the plate and did well for himself. Did I mention that the soundtrack is awesome? Number 22. Blaster Master. We've all been there. Your pet frog escapes from its tank, it jumps onto radiation and mutates. It tunnels underground to a world that is somehow still above ground, and when you jump down the tunnel to investigate, there is a highly advanced, futuristic tank waiting for you, complete with your own size pilot suit. Cliché much? While reading the backstory for what's going on is like an out-of-body experience, and gets even more confusing in the Japanese version where the game is known as Super Planetary War Chronicle Meta Fight. It doesn't really matter, because fun is fun, and fun is Blaster Master. Going around a multi-level environment that features pan-directional scrolling, some of the first examples of backtracking, and even a human pilot mode thrown for variety, all set to awesome, truly beautiful music. Looking past its odd story is very easy. Looking past its difficulty, however, and the fact that there is no password or save option is a bit harder, but not impossible. Number 21. Kung Fu Master. One of my very first arcade experiences. Its graphical style and fun, simple gameplay reminds me of another arcade game that I really liked called Kid Nicky, but I've got to give the nod to Kung Fu, based on the number of quarters I sank into it. I guess the version I played was the Play Choice 10 version of the NES game in the arcade form, because it didn't look like this. It looked like this. I wasn't any good, of course, when I was a kid. I could only make it to the level 2 boss, but there was still something about it that fired my imagination and left a nostalgic mark. And interestingly, not just me in America. Check out the Henshu Doga, Net Traps, Spartan X videos on YouTube. Not only because they're hilarious and entertaining, but because they prove that Kung Fu Master also left a strong nostalgic impression on Japanese gamers at the time, and still continues to hold their imagination. Number 20. Star Wars Battlefront. The basic template of this game is so fun and brilliant, I just don't understand why it doesn't have a yearly version with some tweaks, like any sports game. I think I would buy every new version. You get to go to most all the locations of the battles, and other interesting locales, and fight on whichever side you want, whichever time period you want. You get your choice of so many different kinds of fighter types. What was the most satisfying part? Throwing a grenade next to Vader, blowing him off a ledge, and killing an otherwise unkillable enemy. The worst part? I think we all know. Geonosis. I mean, come on, guys. I could blast about 150 of them away from the air and we still lose? Man up! As great as this game is, it still has wonderful options for expansion. Wouldn't you just love to see the same thing set in the Old Republic days, the Golden Age of the Sith days, the new Jedi Order days? The possibilities are endless. Number 19. Super Star Wars Series. Man, these games were hard. I've beaten them all several times, but the best I could manage was Brave Mode. My hat's off to anyone who could beat them on Jedi. But in any case, beating them on any mode is rewarding, because it treats you to a 16-bit and very faithful recreation of all three movies, different playable characters, including my favorite Luke Skywalker and bikini-clad Slave Leia, and also fun Mode 7 parts thrown in to change up the pace. My favorite of the three, just like my favorite movie of the original trilogy, is Return of the Jedi. You just can't go wrong with Jabba's palace, Endor, and the second Death Star. And like the movies, it took a little time to perfect the lightsaber look in combat. Number 18. Crystallis. And so my love of SNK began. You're probably noticing a kind of trend here with games with wildly different English and Japanese names. For some reason in the States, they thought that the title Godslayer might prove unpopular, so it was changed to Crystallis. This game was crucial for me in bridging the gap between action games and RPGs, which showed me that leveling up can be fun. I love the idea of getting different swords that had different effects. I love the simple but intuitive problems that the plot asks you to solve. And I have always been intrigued by the kind of world that is currently primitive, but has high technology lying buried and forgotten. SNK always has a habit of making connections to its other titles, so the 1986 arcade game Athena and its sequel Psycho Soldier introduced the characters of Athena and Kenso. Their inclusion in Crystallis as Asina and Kensu went over my head at the time, but caused many enthusiastic nods of approval from me when I finally did discover it. That's SNK. Always more and more layers to uncover. Number 17. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time. Michelangelo was always my favorite in the TV show, but for this game, give me Leo and his twin katanas. I honestly can't think of a beat-em-up that is more upbeat, pick-it-up-and-play fun than Turtles in Time. If you were born in the 80s, then you know very clearly that there was a time that the Ninja Turtles simply ruled the world. The main reason being a TV show, the great Eastman Laird comic series, and great games like this one. In most cases, I typically prefer the arcade, as it was usually the superior version, but this is the one time that I go with the Super Nintendo console version. Why? It had the simple but satisfying improvement of hearing every hit you get on the enemies. I always felt odd seeing them do this kind of silent dance when you're beating the hell out of them in the arcade version. Either one you prefer though, grab some friends and get to stomping the Foot Clan. Number 16. Diablo 2, Lord of Destruction. The most addicting dungeon crawler, treasure hunting experience I've ever had. I enjoyed the original Diablo. Recently I also very much enjoyed Diablo 3, but the one I've spent the most time in exploring is definitely the expansion Lord of Destruction. I really love how you have to work your way up from normal to nightmare to hell. And there is always something to look forward to the more and more you play it. Completing equipment sets, finding special unique items, and the brilliant idea of placing runes into slots and spelling specific rune words for greatly enhanced bonuses. And top that off with an environment and atmosphere that lets you take it as slow and methodical as you want, or lets you jump into the thick of the fray. The cutscenes even stand up well today. Of course, modern graphics blow it away, but they were mind-blowing at the time, and do a great job of conveying the dark tones of the story. Number 15. Secret of Mana. You're gonna see the farther we go on this list that I have great love for Square, but not just for a certain flagship series. Square's side projects were brilliant. Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross, Vagrant Story, Secret of Evermore, and Secret of Mana was one of my favorites. The SNES probably has the single greatest soundtrack library of any console ever made, and this game is another reason why. My personal favorite track being Meridian Dance. This game satisfied those who like RPG-style weapon, spell, and level progression, and it satisfied fans of real-time combat action. This game is part 2 in what is known in English-speaking countries as the Mana series, and in Japan as the Seiken Densetsu, or Sacred Sword series. As a whole, the series was much more popular in Japan than in the West, but the one game in the series that we seemed to see eye to eye on was Secret of Mana. Without a doubt, one of the best games to grace the Super Nintendo. Number 14. Street Fighter series. I've gone on record as saying that I was addicted to Street Fighter 2. That is no exaggeration. I could not fight the temptation. My dad dropped me off at the arcade with $5. I always tried to save at least $1 or $2. I never could. I had fun through the alpha days, but even though I largely missed the Third Strike days, I'm not missing out now on the Street Fighter 4 and Ultra Street Fighter 4 days. But the days I miss the most are the World Warrior and especially the Champion Edition days. So many great and unique memories. The time 13-year-old me saw what I thought was easy pickings and challenged a much younger Asian kid who proceeded to beat the shit out of me with Blanca. Or the time I met my old friend Travis, who was something of a local legend and brilliant at every video game he touched. I challenged him and actually beat him in front of a crowd of about 30 who went nuts. And that is part of the beauty of fighting games. The unique, you had to be there moments they make. Only those people in the area knew how good Travis was, knew he hadn't been beaten in years, knew what an upset it was. And they were the ones who gathered around and let me live up my little mini miracle. And it happens all over America, all over Japan, all over the world. Number 13. ICO Shoot 'em Ups. Poor Westerners, always missing out on fantastic games made for Japan only. There are several great reasons to buy a Japanese PlayStation 2, and one of them is a series called ICO Shooting Collection. ICO made a plethora of high-quality, beautiful shooting games, including the Gunbird series, the Strikers 1945 series, Space Bomber, Soul Divide, Dragon Blaze, and my favorite, the Samurai Aces series. They even made some other great games on the side like Cannon Spike, featuring Cammy from Super Street Fighter fame. Yes, Cannon Spike, that thing she says all the time. And Darakutenshi, or The Fallen Angels, another great and underappreciated fighting game. While owning most of them on console was usually not an option, at least the Western world did get to play many of them in the arcades. Whenever you saw that P power-up floating across the screen, you knew you were playing a quality game. Number 12. Ninja Gaiden. Yes, no, not that. No, not that either. There we go. That's Ninja Gaiden. This game is an absolute treasure for the NES. Not a lost treasure, because everyone that I knew at the time either had it or played it, and still remembers how great a game it is. I loved its simple and responsive controls, the wall climbing, the variety of cool sub-weapons, but mostly the best thing was the cinematic cutscenes that told the story beautifully. Counterbalance to all the good things about it was the hellish difficulty, the constantly respawning enemies, the goddamn eagles, I can't tell you how many frustrated hours me and my old friend Alan poured into getting to the last boss fight with Jackie-O. But it was worth it, because right alongside those 2 rounds of Street Fighter I stole from Travis, one of my proudest gaming accomplishments is beating the original NES Ninja Gaiden. No emulators, no save states, just sheer perseverance. Number 11. Metroid Series. Samus Aran is truly one of the best characters in video games. She proves that great, strong, and most importantly fun to play female characters have always been in video games. A quick rundown of my personal top 5 favorites in the Metroid series are Metroid Fusion, Zero Mission, Metroid Prime, the original NES Metroid, and then everyone's favorite, Super Metroid. Ever since the beginning, where it used the simple but brilliant concept of tool-based progression that allows you to explore a little further at a time. Such a great idea, because by the end of the game, you will have so many tools at your disposal, further increasing the fun and sense of accomplishment of the adventure. The Morph Ball is unique and fun, the Ice Beam is unique and fun, and Screw Attack? You got it. It doesn't really matter that you've killed Ridley and Kraid several times, right? Just suit up anytime, anywhere, and take care of business. Number 10. River City Ransom. River City Ransom, one of the granddaddies of beat 'em ups, and probably the only one of which to feature some RPG elements, like buying items which can increase stats and improve combat abilities. I really like how it paid tribute to another beat 'em up granddaddy, Double Dragon. I also really like that for a beat 'em up, there are actually secrets to find, and not just heads to knock around. Even though the game makes knocking those heads around not only fun, but kind of funny. Known in Japan as part of the Kunio-kun series, Kunio being the main character's name, the US saw only a few of these, like Super Dodgeball and Nintendo World Cup. My favorite, which wasn't released in America until the Wii Virtual Console, was the Jidaigeki, or historical drama game. As for River City Ransom though, my favorite version is the EX version for Game Boy Advance, with its remixed music, deeper combat, and ability to form a posse to help reclaim the streets of River City. Number 9. The Curse of Monkey Island. Here's another example where I could easily claim the whole series, as I own all of them, and think they're all great games. But I'm pretty confident that most would agree that Curse is definitely the best. Not only does it have the best soundtrack and was the first to introduce voice acting, this format just seems absolutely the most perfect. It is the closest it comes to essentially having the ability to interactively play a cartoon. And there wasn't really a puzzle that I didn't enjoy solving. I'm looking at you, Escape, with your silly monkey fighting puzzle. Really, the atmosphere set by the music, and the convenient way you can warp to places you've already been to, and the hilarious plot and familiar faces, help to make this one the most enjoyable, and one of the most enjoyable experiences in video games. Number 8. Oddworld Series. These games were a revolution for me. I really felt like for the first time, people were really starting to tap into the potential for what video games could really do and really be. Odd is a great word to describe these games, going around alien environments that feel so beautifully stylistic and somehow real. But I think a better word is unique. Everything about Oddworld is uniquely its own, and shows flashes of real brilliance and inspiration. The moment that Abe holds up his hand to the moon still stays in my heart as an imaginative and mysterious moment, and as of now it still has yet to be fully explained. But I really don't mind the wait, because Oddworld Inhabitants has convinced me to have faith that quality is coming, and quality is worth waiting for. I have to admit that Munch's Odyssey didn't capture my interest like Abe's Odyssey and Exodus, but it has definitely grown on me lately, and Stranger's Wrath really blew me away when I got it to work. But technical issues aside, there are few stories that fired my creativity and imagination like Oddworld. Number 7. Metal Slug Series. Listen. The distinctive sound of the Metal Slug machine gun. The perfect sound effect that conveys what these games are all about. Team Peregrine Falcon inflicting quick and concentrated damage on General Morden's rebel army. Even in a world of HD graphics, these visuals still look very unique and appealing, and even quite charming and sometimes pretty funny. Metal Slug 1 first introduced me to what to expect of the series, and set the bar pretty high. Metal Slug 2 in the improved version Metal Slug X introduced some new innovations and improvements. but I think most fans would agree that Metal Slug 3 was the best of the series. So many hidden secrets, new paths, new ways to get around, and new vehicles to play with. Really though, it doesn't matter which one you play, because they all deliver when it comes to action-packed, immensely fun, and satisfying gameplay for noobs and high-level players alike. Number 6. Capcom Beat Em Ups. This is one of the most cheated, densely packed picks on this list. Beginning with Final Fight, and then Dynasty Wars, Warriors of Fate, The King of Dragons, Knights of the Round, Alien vs. Predator, The Punisher, and what I think was the pinnacle, which were the Dungeons & Dragons games, Tower of Doom and Shadow over Mystara. And that still leaves off good games that I never really got my hands on, like Cadillacs and Dinosaurs and Armored Warriors. For me, it started with the simple but satisfying repetitiveness of Final Fight and Dynasty Wars. Then Punisher took the same basics, but made it a little bit deeper. My medieval fantasy sweet tooth, developed by reading Lord of the Rings and the Sir Thomas Malory King Arthur books, was satisfied by King of Dragons, and especially Knights of the Round. I have great memories of a time my brother and I sank a few dollars into AVP, and got somewhere around halfway through. That was also during the days that I was really into the Dark Horse Aliens comic series. And I think all of those beat-em-ups were taken to a higher level with the D&D games. Right off the bat, as most earlier games only gave 2 or 3 characters, the D&D games expanded it to 4 and then 6. And with all the choices and branching paths, it guarantees several different experiences on multiple playthroughs. It also offers a wide list of spells, sub-weapons, and progression of main weapons. And how many beat-em-ups would have a little section in the middle like this, where you can just relax and interact with NPCs, role-playing game style? I personally love little touches like that game makers don't have to throw in, but do anyway just for fun, and that's why they all are. Number 5. Samurai Shodown series. The Samurai Shodown games were the games that showed me that video games can teach. It is thanks to these games that I know real historical figures like Yagyu Jubei, Miyamoto Musashi, Sasaki Kojiro, Amakusashiro, and many others. I know real places like Ganryu Island, and even the coincidentally named but real Japanese city called Obama. I learned about the card game Hanafuda, about Kabuki and Blackguard Kuroko, about northern Japanese Ainu cultural heritage. These games swept me away with their beautiful art style and authentic music, not to mention the brilliant, if unforgivingly tough, gameplay. These games taught me not only things about Japan, but an important lesson in life, and that is that interest and motivation are the keys to learning. And these games made me ravenously want to learn all about samurai and ninjas, and just the clearly beautiful and unique culture of ancient Japan. And part of the beauty of games is their transcendence of reality. Even if the places never really existed, they do exist in their own way, and they will continue to exist and continue to inspire. These are the games that seal the deal for me as far as Capcom vs. SNK. Not only are they every great thing about fighting games, they have that unique SNK stamp, which includes connectivity with other great SNK titles, the trademark hilariously bad English, and the ability to balance the sometimes severe and serious with the charming and playful. All creature will die, and all the things will be broken. That is the law of samurai. Number 4. Final Fantasy Series. This is without a doubt the most cheated pick on this list. There are simply too many great games in the series to cover properly. From beginning my love and appreciation of the RPG genre as a whole in the NES, to the Super Nintendo days, which demonstrated deeper and more complex and moving storylines, to the 3D world of PlayStation and beyond, always setting a new bar for video games and RPGs in general. The only ones I haven't played are Japanese Final Fantasy III and Final Fantasy XI, and even though there have definitely been some disappointments, judged overall, I don't think there is a bad Final Fantasy game per se. They could all be counted on for nice visuals, fun gameplay, and absolutely beautiful music. A personal top 5 list would begin with American 3, Japanese 6, one of the greatest sprite-based games ever made, with a great cast and very moving plot. Then Final Fantasy VII, the most popular with the fans. I really enjoyed playing it, even though back then the plot often left me and my friends scratching our heads in confusion. Maybe surprising, but my third favorite is Final Fantasy XII. I know many fans had issues with it, and the protagonist and dialogue weren't very strong, but I still have a lot of fun with the combat and the fun locations to explore. My second favorite is the original. To this day, it beats the pants off of many modern RPGs, as far as creating a worthwhile and rewarding experience. My overall favorite, without a doubt, is American 2, Japanese 4. This one has hands down my personal favorite story and favorite music, which you have been hearing. The moment that Cecil becomes a paladin is another life lesson type moment for me, showing that no matter what mistakes you've made in your life, through honesty and real resolve, they can be forgiven. Number 3. Dracula X Chronicles. This game for the PSP might very well be one of the best products I've ever seen packaged together in a single bundle. America was given the game Castlevania Dracula X on the Super Nintendo. A fun game, but most would agree an inferior, watered-down version of the Japanese Castlevania Rondo of Blood. This game not only gives you a beautiful, updated version of that original game, complete with all of its branching paths, extra modes, hidden secrets, and beautiful new cutscenes, it also throws in that original PC Engine or TurboGrafx-16 game, just in case you want to compare the newer and the older versions. And then on top of that, it throws in a complete game as a bonus Easter egg, which is itself a superior game than most studios' feature presentation, which is Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Even though Symphony flew under many gamers' radars at the time, myself included, when people did find it, they found out what a quality game they missed. Rondo of Blood was really onto something with its graphical style and gameplay. It is definitely a home run of a game, always worth the time of picking up and playing. Symphony of the Night incorporated even better music and Metroid-style tool-based exploring and mapping, and upgraded that home run into a grand slam, setting the stage for many fun portable games in the same vein. My favorite, and probably many others as well, being Dawn of Sorrow. If you haven't ever played Dracula X Chronicles, then you really need to. Number 2. ICO Shadow of the Colossus. ICO and Shadow of the Colossus are two games that prove that the simpler and more realistic, the better, more impactful a story can be. As much as I like Legend of Zelda type games where you go from the fighter sword, to the master sword, to the tempered sword, etc., all you really need is one good sword. As convenient as it is to have a video game horse that moves however you want, a realistic horse who acts like a horse is a better companion. Flashy and colorful video game environments can certainly be fun, but you can make environments that are more realistic and simple, and they need not lose anything on beauty or on fun. In fact, they feel more alive, more mysterious, and they pull you in more emotionally because they make you care about everything around you, no matter how small or how dazzlingly large. Every moment you are in the world of ICO and Shadow of the Colossus, you care, and you want to know more. You care about protecting Yorda, and you care about resurrecting Mono. You want to know who made the castle and the Shrine of Worship and how. You want to know about the villages that ICO and Wander come from. And because you don't always get to know, they always fire your imagination. These games reaffirm my faith in human beings, because they show me that there are some people out there who really get it. They understand what good storytelling is all about, and they understand that video games can be a lot more than just the exchanging of currency for a product. They can provide that rare opportunity that many don't get, or that many don't use in life, and that is to inspire. Number 1. Final Fantasy Tactics. This might come as a surprise to some, or not a surprise at all to many who have played this one through. You notice how I keep ranting on and on about the music in video games? This game to me has the best soundtrack that I have ever heard. It can be thoughtful, playful, serious, or triumphant, and do it all beautifully. And in a similar way, the writing, even though sometimes criticized for its odd translation or maddeningly slow text pace, actually shows the same wide variety of emotions, revelations, and surprises. Some of the themes explored are surprisingly deep, and show a level of thoughtfulness and subtlety that has always surprised me. The main meat of this game, though, is in its extremely deep and varied combat and level progression and job system, and the wide cast of characters and monsters you can include in the group, who all have unique abilities and sometimes story arcs. There are so many hidden secrets and characters, deep dungeons full of treasure, unique items to find, and fascinating alcoves to explore, all framed by the wonderful musical score. This is definitely a sentimental favorite of mine that probably most wouldn't agree is the best game ever made, but it doesn't really have to be. Even if it's a big club or a small club, Final Fantasy Tactics is my favorite game to play, and exemplifies everything that makes video games fun and worth the time to play. So, that's my list. I hope you enjoyed, and here are some honorable mentions as the credits roll. Happy holidays at the end of 2014.